Welcome again to this next video lecture. So today we are going to discuss something that we think we know everything about it. Something that is what we've been doing since we have born, probably even from the time before we have born. And today we will talk about non-verbal communication. So let us get into it. Some revisions as usual. I would like you to define what verbal communication is, what the tools used to communicate verbally. I would also like you to find out or discuss in which situations is verbal communication most effective. I would also like you to discuss the limitations of verbal communication. And I think we had talked a little bit about listening, and I want you to figure out what silence is, where verbal communication is useful, where it is not useful, where could you really needs to be silent, where non-verbal communication, of course. After we get into this enough to we have discussed what this is, where non-verbal communication would be more useful, would have a most significant impact than verbal communication, and where silence would be more useful. There is a silence, there is a whole body of research surrounding silence, but we will not discuss that today, maybe a little bit. So uh, after you discuss that, then we will go into non-verbal communication. What is non-verbal communication? Non-verbal communication includes all behaviors, attributes or objects except words that communicate message that have social meaning. One of the definitions, I am sure there are many out there, many definitions that talk about non-verbal communication, that can describe non-verbal communication in a much better manner than this definition. But I have thought for the purpose of this lecture, this definition at least currently suitable. So these are everything else except words, whatever we use other than words. And as we go into greater detail, you will realize that there is lots of things that we take for granted. So, what are the characteristics of non-verbal communication? Non-verbal communication is dynamic, and there is a video that I thought that I would show you later, but I think it is more useful here. So let us see what we mean by the dynamic nature of non-verbal communication, and let us watch this video. If you belong to, or if you are living in India, you may have seen this video at some point, and I am going to play it. Let us see if I can get a full screen here. It is a short video, so please pay attention. So let us see here that video. I have got the clips, but you may not get that uh, voice for this video. So let us see, watch this video. Okay, let's move on to our slide. So here we have got that video again. That video clip is related to the IBM data baby. So this is the link given here. You may search by this name, data baby, on YouTube, and you will observe the video clip. Okay, so as far as the characteristics are concerned, characteristics of non-verbal communication is concerned, non-verbal communication is dynamic. Okay, so thank you for watching this video. So I am not connecting to IBM or in any manner. I am not trying to advertise them. I just thought that this video would help you see what non-verbal communication have when it starts, and I will show you the link to this video. And this has obviously been downloaded from YouTube, and with due acknowledgement, thank you very much for designing such a useful video for us. Again, I will show you the link in another slide. I first thought I would use it later, but then later decided that I would just show it you here. So it is constantly happening. We are constantly sending out signals into the environment that we have observed in that video clip. We are constantly communicating with our environment. There is a whole body of research that studies the movement during sleep, and there is a full body of research that studies what we do, how often we turn sides, how often we curl up, how often we stretch ourselves when we are dreaming. So it studies what people do subconsciously when they are sleeping, and that is all non-verbal communication. Our body is expressing itself. Now, many of us may say that the whole purpose of communication is to get your message across. So, are we? Who are we sending all these messages to? All this is a part of intrapersonal communication as I see it. So, things that people see are part of interpersonal communication. Things that we express when nobody else is watching are intrapersonal communication. And again, I'm sure that there are many psychologists who would probably disagree when I say intrapersonal communication, especially this non-verbal communication that occurs when we are asleep. When we are discussing things in our dreams is a way of sorting out problems in our minds. And again, that is again I will leave that to the psychologist to explain to you. But there is a whole body of research that studies this. Point I'm trying to make is that all this is part of non-verbal communication. So it is always happening, and that is what dynamic means. It depends largely on context and is culture specific. And you can look this up. What we do, how we interpret these signals, depends on what culture we are in. For example, movements with our hands. Again, I'm sure this is something that a dancer would probably interpret as one of the mudras or this. Okay, we may do that kind of body movement like mudra. You might have seen this body language in movies, in serials, or you may imagine or you might have observed the sculptures doing mudras. Okay, so puppeteer or shadow artist would probably see this and say that this movement means puppeteers bring together both the hands, and with the finger movements they prepare the shadow of animal or birds. Okay, it will probably look like an animal dancing and somebody who teaches sign language. We probably see this, or this is a sign of alphabet. If we say all right, very beautiful, we join our pointer finger and our thumb. So how we interpret just these movements by our hands will depend on who is watching this, in what context, where are they coming from, how do they plan to use these movements. So our interpretation of these movements is culture specific. And another thing that I can share with you at this point is the eye movements, gazelles. When we look at somebody and talk, you may know you know that eye gaze. Okay, that gazes when we look at somebody and talk. In many cultures, in high context cultures, we have talked about the contextuality of cultures. In high context cultures, looking straight in the eyes of a person who is higher than in authority or position is considered to be rude and inappropriate. And in low context cultures, looking away from the person you are talking to is interpreted as being evasive. So it is all contextual. What we do is always context specific. This is more believable than verbal communication because a lot more senses are involved in interpretation, and it is ambiguous, which means again many interpretations, more than one interpretation. So let us see next slide here. Non-verbal communication and non-verbal behavior. Now again some more complicated terms very often used interchangeably. If the source intends to send the message through behavior, but the receiver interprets the behavior as a message, then it is considered to be non-verbal communication. And this is the first quadrant. Okay, this is the first quadrant. If the source behaves with no intent to send the message, but the receiver interprets the behavior as a message, it is still non-verbal communication. I may be intending to send a message, I may not be intending to send a message. As long as the receiver of a message is perceiving whatever I do as something, as a behavior that has some message attached to it, some intention attached to it, it is considered as communication. On the other hand, if I am behaving in such a manner where I have some intention to actually send a message, but the receiver doesn't interpret the behavior as a message, then it is considered as a non-verbal behavior. It is just an action. There is no message attached to it. And if I am behaving, if I am moving my body in such a manner without any intention to send the message, and the receiver is also not interpreting the behavior as a message, in that case it is again non-verbal behavior. So the interpretation, please look at this very closely. The interpretation of the behavior as a message or just as a behavior depends solely on what the receiver feels about the non-verbal behavior being exhibited. Okay, so my attaching a message to that behavior, or my intention to attach or not attach a message to that behavior, is immaterial. It is all in the hands of the receiver, and this is not connects and this connects with what we have discussed in the initial lecture. We had talked about the emotional volition aspects of communication. When I am intending to communicate, I have some emotions, some intention attached to that message, but what it is interpreted as depends solely on the receiver. So it is determined solely by the receiver. Only the receiver within his or her own context perceives what is coming, and that is where our control ends. And the receiver interprets whatever is coming, whatever they are sensing through their sense organs, as behaviors or messages with intents, with their context wrapped up in their context. So next, see here next, non-verbal encoding and decoding skills. Okay, encoding and decoding ability are correlated. We have talked about encoding and decoding when we discussed Barrow's model. Encoding skills are related to one another, and as our decoding skills, again nothing in the social science is exhaustive. Nothing in the social science is exclusive. Everything is interrelated encoding skills. The manner in which we shape our messages are interrelated. Our skills are interrelated, and the decoding skills, the manner or expertise in decoding messages is interrelated. Encoding and decoding ability. Okay, now we'll discuss about this. Encoding and decoding ability correlated with personality traits and values. Again, what we feel about a situation determines how we decode a message or how we encode a message. In further lectures, we will discuss what our behaviors can be. We will talk about communication styles, and then probably you can tie this in with the communication styles. But what I am trying to say here is that our ability to encode and decode correlates with our personality traits. Okay, so what we are, what our natural disposition is, whether we are aggressive, whether we are apprehensive about communication, whether we are extroverted, whether we are introverts or extroverts, whether we like talking to people or do not like talking to people, how perceptive we are to the signals coming forth to us in the environment, etc. So this depends on what we feel about where we stand in our environment, what we define as our comfort zones, and what we determine as ethical or unethical. Okay, and encoding and decoding are manifested. Encoding and decoding are manifested through introvert and extrovert behavior. Decoding ability increases with practice and training, but is curvilinearly related to age. So how we interpret the signals coming to us depends on our practice and training. And logically speaking, I think this is a very relevant point here. This has been, of course, I have given you the references. So what happens is that our ability to decode signals depends on the feedback we receive from our environments. In response to our previous attempts on decoding similar signals, complicated or simplified. What I mean to say is that if I going to my office for the first time, I have joined a new organization. I going to the office. I smile at I smile at my colleagues, senior colleagues. I say hello and the person responds and says hello. I feel that the environment is slightly informal. So even if the person is 20 years, 25 years seniors to me in age and experience, my saying hello as a peer, maybe 2 days ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, I was a student. I would say good morning, sir, good evening, sir. So join the same organization as a faculty member, and I say hello, hello, doctor so and doctor so and so says, hello, how are you? And I feel that the things have changed, that this is an informal atmosphere, that I can be a little more relaxed. If I say hello and the other person responds by saying good morning, sir, or good morning, Jadhav sir or Siddha sir, my immediate response is that I need to redefine my comfort zone. So my decoding of that signal has changed. The signal here is seeing a senior colleague. Senior colleague is there, but still I start seeing the organization as a vertical organization rather than as a horizontal organization, and this is what we are talking about here. It increases with practice and training. It increases with practice and training, but is curvy linearly related to age. It doesn't have very much to do with age. It is more about the richness of experience we find ourselves in. Okay, so encoding ability, on the other hand, increases with age. Okay, see here, encoding ability on the other hand increases with age. The frequency is more important here, and again I am not going to debate this point. I have always believed this. You could call me biased in favor of women or men. I feel, and of course research has demonstrated that women are generally better than men at encoding and decoding non-verbal messages. Hardwired, I'm sure this is a full body of research associated with it. I wish I had the time to share that with you, but I don't. So let us just take it at face value. Okay, so why do we communicate? The question is that why do we communicate through non-verbal signals? Some of the reasons that have been given by researchers are accenting with means, emphasizing certain points, complementing, which means that for some reason if a verbal message is not really complete, we complete it with the help of non-verbal signals. So if you look at my hands, when I say this is something that should be done, can you please focus the camera on my hands? Okay, so see here, when we say that, I say this is the point I am trying to make, or I say stop, means we put hands forward and say stop. So please do not come close to me. That indicates, that body language indicates that do not come close to me. Please do not come close to me, and the person doesn't listen, and I say stop. Means by showing our hand palms, saying that person stop, but he is not saying, he is again coming close, then I say stop. That is what happens when we are using non-verbal signals to complement our actions. Okay, when we say we are saying something but we mean something totally different, this is what is commonly known as manipulation. So sorry, so I could have something that is bothering me, and I could be very worried, and I have this big smile on my face, and so I used to use it to contradict my action, and you do not know whether I'm happy or whether I'm really worried. Repeating uh, see here, repeating, you need to do this, yes you need to do this, so that is repeating, and I am nodding my head. You ask me, sir, is this okay, and I say yes, and then I nod my head like this, and I am sort of adding more weight. So regulating, another goal of non-verbal communication is that regulating. Stop, I do not say anything. I monitor my students' behavior. I teach classes and I find students sleeping, and I just keep looking at him. I do not do anything. I just notice somebody not paying attention and I start staring at them. Immediately they straighten up. Or I see somebody hesitating and I want to encourage them. So what do I do? Yes, go on. Yes, go on. Go on. Means in this way I'm regulating. Okay, I'm trying to regulate people's behavior. I'm trying to get the scared, the shy, apprehensive people out of their shell. So I keep saying go on, respond to whatever has been asked. And if I want to cut down something, I say that is enough, stop. Okay, substituting is when we use non-verbal signals in place of verbal signals to monitor behavior and deceiving. Of course, we have a whole bunch of things that I need to tell you about this, and we will talk about this if we have time. We will do it today. Otherwise, we will do it in one of the later classes when we talk about the ethics of communication. So there are some of the goals. Okay. So what is the difference between verbal and non-verbal messages? One is the linguistic distinction. In verbal signals, verbal messages, we use language. In non-verbal messages, we use our body parts. The continuity distinction, non-verbal signals are continuous, they are dynamic, it is constantly happening. This is the link for the video. Here link is given. This is the link. This link is given here. This is the link for the video that I just showed you a couple of slides back. The processing distinction, we process verbal and non-verbal signals differently. There is a whole body of research that deals with the parts of the brain that process verbal signals and the parts of the brain that process non-verbal signals. Again, data table, lots of research exists on this. Lots of people have tried to find out which part of our brain process is verbal signals and which part of our brain process non-verbal signals. The outcome distinction, here the outcome distinction, words have a different impact than non-verbal signals. And the absolute distinction is that when we say words, we are essentially talking about the denotative meaning. This is a table, this is a monitor, it is a monitor, computer monitor, that is all. This is a piece of cloth, this is a you may say collar of shirt, this is a dupatta, that is what it is. Now when I am talking about the non-verbal signals, it is a check shirt, it is a pink dupatta. What is it supposed to signify? It is not silver things on it. So probably a little festive. The connotation is why he or she wearing these festive clothes. If you are in India, you will say this is normal. If you are abroad, you will say why is she or he wearing all these pinks and reds and very bright colors to work. It is not considered to be very formal in abroad. So this monitor connotes a medium for me to use technology very efficiently for things other than watching movies. I mean, this is a medium for education. So all of this stuff is the absolute versus the connotative distinction. Non-verbal signals are connotative, verbal signals are absolute. Okay, so how non-verbal behaviors support verbal behaviors? We use non-verbal behaviors to repeat. For example, giving a person verbal instruction on how to reach a certain destination and then pointing in the direction, that is the direction you need to go in. Please go forward, go to the end of the class and sit down there. Okay, contradicting, for example, shaking and perspiring heavily and stammering while making a speech in which you claim you got nervous. So you are constantly doing this and scared. Okay, substituting, for example, facial expressions. Okay, just we study this. Substituting, for example, facial expressions are or rigidity of body positions, which communicates a message without a word being spoken. So instead of using words, as I just told you, I just stare. Instead of telling my students to pay attention, all I do is just to look at them and they know that I'm in business. Okay? Complimenting. For example, reflecting an attitude of embarrassment when admitting to a superior about your poor performance. I'm really sorry, I'm sorry that I made a mistake. I cannot look you in the eye. I do not say that, but I'm sorry. I goofed up, I apologize. So that is complimenting. Assenting. Now assenting. Assenting is banging your head or hand on the desk. Okay, means we bang this one. We banging your head on or hand on the desk every time you want to emphasize a point with an accompanying gaze. So you say, yes, this is what I mean. And relating and regulating. Head nod, eye movement, or shift in position, which signals another person to continue to speak or stop speaking. Okay. So, some modalities, non-verbal modalities through which messages are transmitted. We have body codes, we have contact codes, we have spatio-temporal codes. When we say body codes, we are essentially talking about movement with the help of our body. Contact codes are the modalities. It is the interperson that depend on interpersonal contact. So this is related to me in relation to the person standing next to me or person in my vicinity. Spatio-temporal codes, spatio deals with the space and the physical space around me. Temporal deals with, okay, spatio deals with the space, the physical space around me, and temporal deals with the time. Okay, so we'll go through each of these one by one. Okay, body codes, oculesics, eye movement and behavior, and facial expressions, and the management of facial expressions. So we have different types of gazes. Again, I could go on and on about this. I am sure there are a couple of lectures on non-verbal communication by Professor Priyadarshini Patnaik that are a part of I believe NPTEL phase 1 and even NPTEL phase 2. I am not sure, but there is something you can look at. Means you may observe whole state of non-verbal communication on NPTEL courses. So there will be more detail about these things. I will just give you an overview, and I suggest you go to those lectures and look at it more closely. Okay. So intensifying, exaggerating. So we have this intensifying gaze. We stared on a person and exaggerate a point. Neutralizing, which is understanding. You are saying that, sir, I made this mistake, ma'am, I made this mistake, or you go up to a superior and say, I goofed up, and the superior nods his head, and that is understating. Okay, so you can neutralize things, you can bring down the intensity of things. De-intensifying. So de-intensifying is the avoiding gaze, which is what people who are trying to deceive you do, or when you are trying to be evasive. That is what we do. And masking, we replace things. Neutralizing is toning down the intensity of your expressions. Neutralizing is toning down the intensity of your expressions, and masking is completely replacing the expression with a different expression from what you are actually feeling, completely replacing the emotion with a totally opposite expression. So you are feeling happy, but you sort of put up this very sad expression on your face, so that the other person, the person you are talking, you are taking to, somehow gets the idea that you are really in need, or the other way around, you want to appear professional. So even if you are disturbed and unhappy and sick, what you do? You have this very happy, very content look on your face, so that people do not come to know how hurt or angry or how much in pain you are. Okay, then body movement. We have emblems. Body movements means kinesics. We have emblems, we have illustrators, we have affect displays, we have regulators, and we have adapters. Okay, so now what are emblems? So see here, emblems are body movements that substitute for words and phrases. Emblems are body movements that substitute for words and phrases. So we say thumbs up, this is an emblem. We show thumbs up, this is an emblem. Please, you may imagine that I am doing thumbs up. So thank you. So when we say emblem, this is an emblem. Good, buck up, continue please, continue. So this is an emblem. Okay, then illustrator or complementers, they add weight to what we do. I just showed you. Affect displays, our movements of face and body that explicitly show motion. Okay, our movements of face and body that explicitly show motion. Now I say this is what we do. I will give you a very nice example instead of trying to do this myself. I am not a dancer, but I am but a few know classical dance, and if you are seeing classical Indian classical dance, especially or ballets in the Western culture, you will see that facial expressions carry a lot of value. They do not need to say so many things. It all reflects here, and that is the affect display. Every emotion, everything they say, everything that is transmitted is by way of the movement of the muscles in your face, and that is an affect display. And we have tend to do this even at work. Now, why am I discussing all this in a class on business communication? Because we use all of these things to get our work done in the workplace. Okay, regulators or controllers, for example, showing the hand to end the discussion, that is enough. And adapters are movements we use to relieve tension. For example, tics, we have this, and I'm sure if my dad is watching this, or my father has a habit of self scratching his nose when he is a little tense or worried. He has he does the itching of his nose, but I picked up this habit from him. I would do this when I was a little nervous. Or some of us chew or bite our nails, or what many women do is they take their hair and then they start splitting their hair. I have seen this. It looks very strange, but this is something we do. So these are adapters. Means adapters movements that we use to release our tension. So we sort of do these things to get over or to reduce the amount of nervousness we feel in a situation, and this is all related to the movement of our body, that is kinesics. Okay, so body codes. So let us stop here. We may discuss remaining part in next video lecture. Thank you.